So we ran into the problem whereby this was causing an error because to begin with, the job is null and we can't access the title property on null. That makes no sense. It's only after the fetch request has completed and we update the value of the job to be the data that we get back that we can do this. So we want to only output this once we have a value for the job. And to do this, we're going to use viv. Now we've seen this in the past whereby we can use the viv directory to only output a certain amount of templates if a condition is true. So I'm going to create a div first of all, and then I'm going to say viv on this div and set it equal to something. Now remember, if the thing inside this is true, then it will show whatever inside the div. If it's false, then it won't show this div and whatever is inside it. So I'm going to set that equal to job. Now to begin with, job is null. And null is a falsy value. So it won't show this div and everything inside it to begin with. And then when we assign a value to the job using the data we get back from this fetch, then this will have a value. And since it has a value, it will evaluate as true. Any kind of value will be true. So now this would only output if we have a value for job. And at that point, we can say this, job.title and job.details, because then job will be one of these objects. So let's try this out now. Hopefully now we won't get an error. I'm going to save it and refresh. And now we can see the title and the details. All right, cool. Now we could also, if we wanted to, add a v-else. So I could say div, and then I'm going to say v-else. And so if this is not true, which it isn't to begin with, then we can output something like loading job details. So I'll do a paragraph tag and say loading job details ... like so. And if I refresh over here, you'll see that flash up, this bit right here, for a split second until we have the data. And then once we have the data, it replaces that with the job data. So watch this. Very quickly, very quickly, impossible to see. But if you've got a slower connection, perhaps you'll see it for longer than I did. But either way, it was there. Now I'm going to do something very similar inside the jobs component. And I only want to output this stuff right here once we have jobs. Now it doesn't really matter so much in this case because we have an array and that has a value. It's just that we can't cycle through an empty array. So even though it tries this, there's no jobs in there. It's not going to error. It's not going to cause an error, which is why we don't need to do a viv around this. But I'm going to do a viv around it so that I can do a v-else as well, so I can output loading jobs until we have the data. So let me now do a div at the top, and I'll say viv is equal to jobs, and not just jobs, because it does have a value, and this will be truthy, but jobs dot length. Now this will be falsy because it doesn't have a length. There's nothing in it to begin with. All right. So if I copy all of this stuff right here, when we cycle through the jobs, inside that, now this is only going to be output once there is a length inside here. Now I can do another div and I can say v-else on that. And so if this is false, which it is to begin with, then I can output instead a paragraph tag saying loading jobs ... All right, so let's see if we have better luck with this. I'm going to go to jobs and okay, we didn't see that, but I think I'll hard refresh and you could see it for a split second again. It said loading jobs. Watch this. Split second, loading jobs. So now we show this until the jobs are ready and then we show the jobs. Okay, so that's how we can conditionally output template when we're waiting for data that we fetch. Now there's multiple ways of doing this, of waiting for data, especially in Vue 3. We might use a few different ways as we go forward. This is just one of them.